Welcome into the High School OT postgame show. Evan Moesta here with you from the High School OT studios in Raleigh. This postgame show is presented by Talk It Out NC. We're going to get to all of the action as 14 teams in the state of North Carolina have punched their tickets to next weekend's NCHSAA football state championships. Let's go through the brackets. Let's show you what those matchups will be. We will start with the 8A bracket, which was determined last Friday night. Again, Huff picked up a big win over West Charlotte. There's some big news with West Charlotte football as well if you go over to HighSchoolOT.com. But it was a 24-0 win for the Huskies. They will take on Millbrook next week. We believe it will be Thursday. That is not yet confirmed. Hopefully in this postgame show, Joel Bryant will be able to join us and give us a little bit of insight on where these state championship matchups may be. Millbrook defeated Hoggard 14-7. Brylas and McCullers had a pair of touchdowns in that game to send the Wildcats to their first state championship in program history. Now, two games that were played yesterday. The 7A final. Two epic thrillers. Grimsley in the West. They continue to match up with Weddington every postseason. This is the third straight year that they have met late in the playoffs. Weddington got Grimsley 2 years ago and then went on to win the state championship. Grimsley got the Warriors back last year and went on to win the state championship. Now, it is a 13-7 victory for Grimsley, who has been one of the top teams in the state for years now. This is their third state championship trip in the last 4 years, and they have gone through an absolute gauntlet to get here. They've knocked off West Charlotte. They've knocked off Weddington. They've knocked off Verina from Virginia. They've had an impressive path back to the state title game. In the East, they will face Clayton. Aiden Smalls, an all-time performance last night, a legacy game, you may say. He leads the Comets to a 35-32 victory over Cardinal Gibbons. Mind you, Smalls started his career at Cardinal Gibbons. He's played the last 2 years in Clayton, and now he will play his final high school game for a state championship. The NC State recruit rushes for 4 touchdowns, and then he throws the game winner with 33 seconds to go. Cardinal Gibbons had one last chance to take the lead in the final seconds, but Smalls, the NC State recruit, picks it off and sends Clayton into a frenzy to defeat Cardinal Gibbons 35-32. So that's your 7A matchup. It's Grimsley and Clayton. Now off to 6A. As I mentioned, we don't know what that matchup is going to be quite yet because weather has pushed both games to tomorrow. Watauga up in Boone in northwest North Carolina, they've dealt with some winter weather, and so Northern Guilford will make the trip there tomorrow. That's going to be a cold, rainy, possibly snowy night in Boone. Now all the way out at the coast, the far east part of the state, that is where Jacksonville will host Middle Creek from Wake County. Jacksonville unbeaten this year. Again, that game is tomorrow. We presume that because that game is tomorrow, those two teams will play Saturday in either Durham County or Hickory. Again, hopefully Joel Bryant can join us in a little bit and give us some clarity there. 5A bracket now. Crest, a big win over Hickory. Crest has been a favorite all year for us over at High School OT in the 5A classification. They leave no doubt, 39-21 over Hickory. And how about this, Hunt? Off to the state championship, a 20-7 victory over Northside Jacksonville. It is Hunt's first trip to a state championship since 2004. So 21 years for the Warriors to get back a little of that mojo. They will head to the state final to take on Crest. In 4A, Brevard went final tonight. The Blue Devils defeat Maiden 30-13. It took Hunt 21 years. How about this? It takes Brevard 43 years in the title for their first time in 43 years. The Blue Devils lost last year's regional final at the 2A level to Monroe. They have not lost since. A 30-13 win over Maiden, and they will face Reedsville. Reedsville, for the third time in the last 4 seasons, will play for a football state title, and it did not come easy last night for the Rams. They were down 21-20 with 4:57 left. Deontay Neal checks in at quarterback. He's the reigning NCHSAA, the reigning Gatorade Boys Basketball Player of the Year, but a stellar football star as well. Neal leads the Rams down to the 4-yard line. Alex Penaloza kicks a go-ahead field goal in that one to give Reedsville the lead. Wes Craven gets across midfield and is trying to answer back in the final 90 seconds, but Neal gets an interception to seal the deal. For Neal and five-star Oregon recruit Kendra Harrison, that duo, this is their 6th state championship appearance in 7 tries. They've gone to 3 of 4 football state titles in their career, and they've gone to the basketball state championship all 3 years that they have played. Mind you, Harrison is graduating early. He signed his national letter of intent yesterday to head off to Oregon, so he will not play this basketball season. So of the 7 go-arounds that duo had, they go to 6 state championships, and they will have a chance to win their 2nd in football and their 4th overall next week against Brevard. That'll be a great game in the 4A classification. Now over to 3A. Shelby, how about this? 3A is wild. The 10-seed Golden Lions go on the road to Lincolnton, a blowout victory, 30-0 over Lincolnton. Joel Bryant was at that game. He'll break that one down. It really was not close at any point in this one, as Shelby runs away with a conference win there, 30-0 in the regional final. They will face the 14-seed Kinston. The Vikings go down to James Keenan and win 30-7. So it'll be a 10 versus 14 matchup in the 3A state championship. Genesis Wiggins had a big game for Kinston yesterday, and so did Tyreek Copper. If you have not seen already, it's on our social media profiles, but Joel Bryant put out a thing today about Tyreek Copper. He is 2nd all-time in single-season receiving yards in NCHSAA history, and he is 2nd all-time in touchdowns in a single season. He has the potential next weekend to break both of those state records in the state title game. Again, Tyreek Copper is an NC State recruit, a wide receiver for Kinston. Quite the weekend, quite the day yesterday for NC State recruits, Copper and Small. So that is your 3A final. It is going to be Shelby against Kinston. Now off to 2A. 2 blue bloods in the state of North Carolina will once again meet in the state championship. Murphy, the Bulldogs, in a defensive slugfest, pull out a 14-2 win tonight over Starmount. That game was 0-0 deep into the 3rd quarter. That's when Cameron Clem, the star running back for Murphy, broke a scoreless tie. They get another touchdown to go up 14-0, and then Starmount in the final minutes gets a safety there. Murphy will take on Tarboro. It feels like the 2A East is always the Tarboro Invitational. The Vikings shut out Warren County 40-0 tonight, or last night, excuse me. The Vikings are heading to play Murphy. They have had plenty of epic battles. I think that's one of the good things about going to 8 classifications now, is that now that we're back to having 8 football state championships like we used to in the subdivided era, you now get these situations where all of these powerhouse programs are playing for state titles. The Murphys, the Tarboros, the Reedsvilles. You go across the Shelbys, you go across the board, all of these teams are getting opportunities to play, and then you have some new fresh blood in there that's been knocking on the door for years. A program like a Brevard, a program like Clayton, Wilson Prep, Huff, Millbrook. All of those teams have come so close. Now they have a chance. There's a nice little mix here in these teams that are playing in state finals. I mentioned Wilson Prep. They will be the 1A East champion and face Robbinsville, another historic program that has long been in state titles. Robbinsville blew out South Davidson last week, 41-7. And Wilson Prep picked up a 30-point win over Northside from Beaufort County. So those are your state championship matchups. We bring you back in here to the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Evan Moesta here from the High School OT studios in Raleigh. Lots of exciting action to get to. We're going to have a couple guests on the show to help break down how tonight's games went. But first, a message from our partners at Talk It Out NC.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth. Teens bounce back fast, and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, Alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.
Postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Evan Moesta here with you. A reminder, you can visit talkitoutnc.org, talkitoutnc.org, and that is where you can get all of the tools and resources that you need to start the conversation today to help stop underage drinking. Again, all of our state championship matchups are set with the exception of the 6A classification. We had mentioned when we were going through the 8A scores and looking at the 8A state championship, Huff last week defeating West Charlotte 24-0. I mentioned there was a little bit of news with West Charlotte. They won the 3A state championship last year. They were a favorite. This year, obviously, they go to the 8A regional final last week, but their head coach, who is a two-time state champion, Sam Greiner, is out already as the head coach at West Charlotte High School. That news, 1 year after leading them to the 3A state championship, came out today in an email from the school's principal, Paula Cook. That email was first obtained by Cameron Williams from the Charlotte Post. But according to that, Sam Greiner is no longer going to serve as the head coach at West Charlotte High School. That email notified that they are going to begin a search for their next football coach. Greiner took over the West Charlotte football program back in the 2021 season. They had to initially forfeit all 11 games that they played, but his second year they went 7-6. The third year 9-4. They went to the third round, and then last year they had a 13-2 overall mark, winning the 3A state championship over 71st. They finished 10-3 this year. One loss was to Huff. One loss was to Grimsley. By no stretch is that a bad mark at all. Greiner is only one of 7 coaches in NCHSAA history to have won a state championship as a head coach at 2 different schools. His first state championship came in the 4A classification at Harding University High School back in 2017. So lots of coaching shakeups there. You can visit HighSchoolOT.com and get an entire list of coaching changes ahead of the 2026 season. There are some big openings across the state. Shane Laws announced his retirement at AC Reynolds. That's a big one. Yesterday, Ashley's Dante Lombardi announced that he has an opening as well. So right now we are over a dozen different coaching openings across the state of North Carolina. You can catch all of those changes on HighSchoolOT.com as coaches step down and there are changes, and also new coaches are announced at high school. So you can visit HighSchoolOT.com to get all of that information as well. Again, we're waiting to get news on what the state championship schedule is going to look like. The NCHSAA, obviously, the biggest thing here is making sure that travel accommodates the state finalists. So when you look at a matchup like a Tarboro-Murphy, or you look at a Watauga-Jacksonville potentially, if those two teams were to take advantage of their home field advantage tomorrow and win, they're at polar opposites of the state of North Carolina. So right now we have 3 state championship venues that we can put these teams at. You have Kenan Stadium on the campus of UNC. There will be 2 games on Thursday there, 2 games on Friday at Kenan Stadium. So those are your options there. And then Saturday, there are going to be 2 games at Lenore Rhines Moret Stadium in Hickory, and there are going to be 2 games at Durham County Memorial Stadium. So it's a matter of figuring out where those teams slot in, how they work together, and trying to piece those different programs in relative locations to one another. You also have to factor in, a team like a Watauga, a Northern Guilford, a Jacksonville, Middle Creek has to play tomorrow. So you don't want to put them on a short week. So being able to possibly slot them into one of those Hickory or Durham County spots next Saturday helps fill that spot. I'm going to bring J. Mike Blake into the High School OT postgame show here. J. Mike, welcome into the show. Right now we're kind of going through and discussing. It sounds like we're on the doorstep of getting some news here, potentially, about times, locations, and matchups for state final games next week, next Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And for the people at home watching, how does this kind of work? Because obviously everybody wants to play in prime time. Everybody wants to play with the short travel. But there's also a level of equity that I think needs to be achieved by the NCHSAA, and the NCHSAA also has to take into account venue size and being able to bring in the crowds that you're going to have. You're not going to take an 8A state championship matchup and put it in Durham County Memorial Stadium. And so you got to look around and you got to mix and match. We've heard, from the deep west part of North Carolina that playing on Thursday at 4 o'clock isn't ideal. But also you kind of have to sort it out because this 1A and this 8A classification, again, we imagine it's going to slot into that Thursday 4 and 8 time slot at Kenan Stadium, but these teams had a bye this week. So being able to allow them to take the field as soon as possible feels like something that would be beneficial to those programs. So it's a interesting game here of putting these puzzle pieces together, seeing what ones fit. Obviously, Murphy Tarboro, Joel Bryant put out a tweet earlier today. I wouldn't be shocked if that game goes to Hickory. And if you're a Tarboro fan, you're sitting around and saying, what? We're going to Hickory? Well, if you pull up a map, Murphy's about 3 hours, 10 minutes from Hickory. Tarboro's about 3 hours, 40 minutes from Hickory. So there's about a 30-minute differential there. And J. Mike, you know state championship history better than all of us. Murphy's had to make a fair amount of trips to Raleigh to play Tarboro, who's just an hour up the road.
Yeah, it's the way they do championships now for football is going to be a little bit more akin to what they've had to do with maybe the Final Four format in basketball, or maybe trying to put some things together with baseball, softball championships and things like that. The old way, even when we had 8 championships subdivided for a number of years, the old way was you kind of knew you were going to alternate every other year between State and Carolina, or maybe Duke or Carolina or State. And so we only had 4 classifications. You knew 4A and 4AA. If they were at Carolina one year, they're probably at State the next. And it kind of crisscrossed. Because there's no real travel difference on a statewide scale between the 3 triangle schools. And then even Wake Forest, that's pretty central to most places, right? The wrinkle that comes in this year is the Hickory location, the Lenore-Rhine location. All of a sudden, I think that's where you start to build your schedule out. You figure out what are the 2 classifications we can put there. I'm also interested in the times because you kind of need enough of a gap to even get that group of fans out of the stadium, out of the parking lot before the next ones trickle in. People don't think about that, the overlap. Basketball championships have not returned to Reynolds Coliseum after one particular year in which they started off with the big schools. It was 4A at the time. And when they, were still playing in the fourth quarter, everyone else was kind of waiting to enter Reynolds Coliseum because they got there early because you want to be on time for your championship game. And that overlap is I think from that lesson learned there, what has really translated into all the future championship planning. So that's something people don't think about. Especially at Moret Stadium, which I'm told the parking situation is okay, but it is not. It's not quite Carter-Finley parking capacity, which we're not having any championships at Carter-Finley this year. But it's not quite Kenan Stadium with huge parking decks nearby. It's a little bit different. So I'm interested in the staggering of that. I know we're getting comments like, why do we go to 8 classifications? Guys, that is so in the past. All right. The coaches and the athletic directors from around the state push for this. We're at 8 championships, just like we used to be, but because of some different things with the state legislature, the association went from being in the black as an organization to one, as we cover this week, the board of directors, one that's losing a little bit of money, a little bit more money every year since the limitations put on their corporate sponsorships. So instead of having 4 ACC venues that want the association and the association being able to pay for those, now we are going to Durham County Stadium and Lenore-Rhine. So we used to have 8 championships for years in football. That part's nothing new. It's a little bit new in now I don't know if you can pay the pretty penny it takes to go to Duke and Wake Forest. That's a little bit of the change that has to come up. But again, I think if you're kind of scheduling this out, it starts with Lenore-Rhine. What 2 do you put there? I think the easy one is 4A. We kind of saw this in the volleyball championships where Friday was at Winston-Salem because, again, Wake Forest University, they have an off-campus gymnasium or arena. And so you could put those on Friday. And then on Saturday, you had to go to Reynolds because Reynolds is great, has great parking, is wonderful. But Friday there were classes, so you couldn't park there. That being said, like 4A seems logical because your East champ being Reidsville, most people would say, I think all of us would say, that's not really an Eastern North Carolina team, right? It's north of Greensboro. So that's not going to be bad travel at all. So when we get these dates and times, I think people will be able to see how it makes sense if you start with that. And maybe if you start with saying, okay, 1A and 8A, you've had about a week and a half to make some travel plans, whether it's maybe a half day at your school or a late start the next day. We saw basketball teams doing that in the Final Four format, which was very helpful. So I think those are like the first dominoes to fall. And again, I know it's not easy to play. Whoever gets the Thursday 4 p.m. game is going to be the most upset. But Thursday 4 p.m. is not as bad if you are, in theory, if you're 1A and 8A, and you've had so much time to plan this out.
Yeah. So that's J. Mike Blake. We're going to let him go here, bring him back in a little bit here on the High School OT postgame show. But for the time, we're going to bring in Chris Womack from WLOS. We've been talking about some of these big games out in Western North Carolina. Brevard and Murphy punched their tickets to state championships. Chris, let's start with the Blue Devils, their first state championship.
Hey, buddy, I've lost you. If you can hear me, I cannot hear you. So
we can hear you, Chris. Can you hear us?
Here.
All right, we're going to bring Chris back in just a moment here on the High School OT postgame show. As we break down some of the matchups here. A question we got on Facebook, who are the teams playing in the 4A bracket? J. Mike Blake had mentioned just quickly that it was going to be Brevard and Reidsville. Let's see if Chris can hear us now. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, so Chris, we're going to talk about some of the matchups out in the Deep West that happened today. Brevard picking up a big win, Murphy picking up a victory as well. Let's start with the Blue Devils. Their first state championship appearance in 43 years. They will play Reidsville.
And what I thought was really impressive is once it became obvious that they were going to win and they took a knee for the final time, those kids, they were excited, but they didn't dump a Gatorade cooler. They didn't go super crazy. It was business. Brevard expected to win this game. They expected to play for a state title, and that's what Luke Coleman kept. He wasn't telling them, way to go, guys, you did it. He was saying, this is not the trophy we want. That's not the one we're after. He kept saying that over and over and over again, and it probably helps that the Blue Devils were so dominant from the first whistle. They marched it down and got to inside the 5. They decided to go for it on 4th and goal and didn't get it. But I think that Luke sent the tone right then that we are here to score touchdowns. We're not here to kick field goals. And then the combination of Christian Conley and Tristan Thompson Wynn, it was just unstoppable. I mean, they hooked up on the first touchdown pass. Then Tristan forced a fumble and took the fumble recovery back about 50 yards for the second touchdown. And then Brevard leaned on the run game. They just ran out the clock and then tacked on a couple more touchdowns while they were at it. They've been clearly the best team in Western North Carolina all year long, and that just continued on tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Conley. He has had a lot fall on his shoulders this postseason and taking on a lot of duties as a playmaker, a quarterback. This team, Chris, a year ago fell in the regional final. Now they sit here playing for a state championship. They have not lost since. How much did that drive this team? And do you think that kind of hunger of we're not satisfied yet comes from knowing kind of how fragile it was last year getting to this point and then falling?
Absolutely. I think that last year they saw they can play with the best of them. You know, they beat an East Rutherford team that beat Reidsville in the second round last year. So I think that the confidence and what Luke has really been instilling in these kids, they saw, oh, he's right. We are good enough to compete. And certainly last year was a really painful way to lose, and a lot of those kids came back. I mean, they do have quite a few returners from that team in key roles. And so, yeah, I do think that motivates them a little bit. But more than anything, I think that they really just now know that they can compete, that they do belong, that, you know, Reidsville has a bunch of state titles, yes, but Brevard has earned their way there as well. And and their confidence, it's not an arrogance. That's what's really cool about it. You don't hear them talking trash. They don't get personal fouls and celebration penalties. They are very businesslike and methodical in everything that they do. And that comes from just the confidence of knowing that they do in fact belong.
Yeah, Joel Bryant and I talked about this a little bit last night. We were discussing the Reedsville game because that came down to the wire. Reedsville had to hold on and get a field goal at the end and an interception to win. The discipline of that Brevard team and the way Coach Coleman keeps them so locked in on the mission of what the game plan is. This is going to be a very intriguing 4A state championship final next week. Let's talk a little bit about Murphy as well. The Bulldogs, a scoreless game until deep into the third quarter, but their ground game is just so hard to stop. A 14-2 win over Starmount tonight.
Yeah, Cameron Clem is sort of like Thanos. I mean, he's inevitable.
Yep.
Eventually he's going to break one and he's going to wear you down. That's a big kid. I mean, there's not a whole lot of kids in 2A that are running backs that are the size of Cameron Clem. It's he is a monster. And Murphy is another one of those programs that this is a tradition. It's very similar to Reedsville in a lot of regards, in that state championships are expected there. Robbinsville is the same way. I always tell the story of I was covering a Murphy playoff game, and at Murphy you have to park kind of across the practice field and then walk into the stadium. And there were a bunch of kids, little kids out there playing football. And at most stadiums you hear, "Oh, I'm Patrick Mahomes. Oh, I'm Des Bryant," and all that. These kids were saying, "I'm Slade McTaggart," and they were naming Murphy players. Those were the ones that they were pretending to be. And that just tells you a little bit about how much football means to the far, far west corner of North Carolina.
That was a big win again. Yeah, I remember watching Clem as a freshman, and I believe I was watching him at Bishop McGuinness in the second or third round of the state playoffs 2 years back, and he was unstoppable. Every time he touched the ball, no matter where he was on the field, it felt like a touchdown run. So we're going to get another epic Murphy versus Tarboro matchup, which I think takes us back to the subdivided 8 state championship days. Now that we have 8 classes where matchups like this, Murphy and Tarboro, are once again resurrected here, and so that should be exciting. Anything else to add, Chris?
No, obviously Robbinsville punched their ticket last week, and I'll tell you, when Robbinsville stayed in 1A, pretty much everybody around here said, well, for the next however many years until they reclassify again, just go ahead and put Robbinsville in that state championship representing the West. So this is the first time since I've been here that we've had 3 teams from the 828 make it to the state championship round. And so, a lot of excitement over here, and looking forward to next week, just trying to find out when I need to be where.
Well, I know for sure that the press conferences are Monday out in Greensboro, and again, from what we've heard, within the next few minutes, 15, 20 minutes, we should have a little bit of an idea of what next weekend's state championships will look like. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
That's Chris Womack from WLOS breaking down some of the big wins in the 828. One of those big wins came from the Murphy Bulldogs, and their head coach, Joseph Watson, now joins us here on the High School OT postgame show. Coach, congratulations on the victory, 14-2 tonight against Starmount. It felt a little inevitable there late in that third quarter in a scoreless game that at some point Cameron Clem was going to find the end zone, and that ends up being what takes the top off of this game and allows you guys to pick up a 14-2 win.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was a tough ball game. Starmount did an outstanding job defensively, and eventually we just continued plugging, and Cameron ended up popping one out, and they did a great job.
What makes him so special as a running back going into the state championship? This seems like it's going to be a stage where obviously we've known what he's been able to do over the last three seasons now, but now he's going to get to do this on a state championship stage. What are people going to be able to expect out of your star running back?
Yeah, he's a big kid. He runs hard and he's strong, and he's just he's hard to tackle, and once he gets going, I just like it's easy just to continue to give to him and just watch him go. But his offensive line, those guys up there are the guys that do the work, and Cameron will tell him Cameron telling you the same thing. He can't do it without those guys, and they've been doing an outstanding job for it this entire playoff season. And just proud of him and those guys up front.
Two programs full of tradition. You and Starmount, I'm sure you guys knew this wasn't going to be an easy one coming in. When you're this far in the playoffs, it's always a battle. What did it take from your kids to kind of make it through that first 30 minutes of the game 0-0, and how do you just keep them kind of locked in on the mission of being able to break through, find the end zone, and then make the necessary stops that they need? Obviously tonight your defense only get the Starman only gets the 2 points there on that safety, so how do you kind of keep those guys focused in on the goal there in what was a scoreless game for a lot of this contest?
Yeah, you just got to stay patient, and our guys have, have played really well in the playoffs, and we have scored a lot of points, and we've got a lot of yards offensively, and it was just, you had to stay patient, and we knew Starmount was a really good football team, and did an outstanding job on defense against us. So that was part of it. Just understanding we just got to continue to stay after it, stay patient, and keep doing what we do, and just continue to fight and continue to finish.
Next week, you're going to face Tarboro in the 2A state championship. Murphy and Tarboro, tale as old as time. You guys have had some classic state championship matchups in the past. What do you expect going up against this Tarboro team, and what does it mean to have this program back playing for a state championship?
Yeah, I expect a really well coached football team. Coach Craddock does an outstanding job, and his staff do a great job. Expect a really good run game, and that's what they're known for. They do an outstanding job of doing what they do, and it works well for them, and their kids buy in, and they do it exceptional. It means so much for me and my family and our coaches to be able to come back to the state championship. We've been there a bunch, and and it's been since 2020. And so, we figured it's about time we need to get back there and make some noise again.
Well, one of the few programs in the state of North Carolina that can say, finally, we're back for the first time since 2020. The
Sure.
Murphy Bulldogs, they pick up a 14-7 win tonight to win the 2A West Regional Championship. They defeat Starmount, and next week they will face Tarboro for the state title. Thanks for joining us tonight, Coach.
You got it, man. I appreciate you.
That is Joseph Watson, the head coach of Murphy High School, joining us here on the High School OT postgame show. J. Mike Blake, I'm going to bring him back into the show. It sounds like we're kind of on the doorstep here, potentially, J. Mike, of finding out what these locations are going to be.
Yeah, sounds like it should be soon. Like the association usually tries to give the schools a little bit of a heads up, and just seeing like key pieces fall into place. Now, 6A champion, both regional finals are tomorrow, so that's kind of out of the window. But I still think you can probably make a decision on everyone, knowing 7 of the 8 championships, right? I think the big one was tonight with Murphy. Like you said earlier, if Murphy doesn't win that game, Starmount is a lot closer to Hickory than Murphy is. But if Murphy makes it, then maybe that's a place where you have the Lenore-Ryan game, because Murphy and Tarboro are both 3 hours from that. So that was probably a big piece to kind of fall into place. Also, just knowing Brevard is coming all the way from the mountains. That, again, to me, I think the 4A is one that I would be shocked if it's not a Hickory, because of your having Reedsville win the East. So we should know. I mean, the association typically for these championships will send out an email either in some sports before the regional final, kind of like we saw with volleyball this year. But if not, it's usually, like right after the regional finals, because they have been weighing everything going into it as well. One thing I'm interested in seeing is in some sports this year, like cross country, in tennis, they just kind of put the bigger 4 classifications on one day and the smaller on the next. And just kind of seeing how that goes, even though in your mind, you're thinking the bigger classes bring more fans. That's not always the case necessarily in football and basketball, right? Like Reedsville brings everybody. These smaller towns, I wouldn't be shocked if Brevard didn't bring a whole bunch of people, right? these small towns bring a lot. So it'd be interesting to me how they kind of weigh things and expecting who brings what. If Watauga wins the 6A West, all of that county is coming down. We've seen them support girls
Yeah.
basketball very well in the past, and they've been waiting for
supported
this one.
volleyball well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how long the community has been waiting on it and knocking on the doorstep. So you get a program like Watauga that's been trying to knock the door down and finally does. Here they come. Brevard, same thing. Hunt, I would be surprised there are people who haven't been, like I'm from Wilson, but I've been living in, Charlotte for years, who don't go wherever the game is. They're going to go and support their alma mater. So that's something I think the association will have to weigh in as well. It's going to be pretty interesting to see. Well, we should know, hopefully, before midnight.
Yeah, we could definitely see a world where even on a short week, you have to send that 6A state championship just because the size of the schools, the size of the fan bases. Keenan Stadium might be the only facility that can hold what it could potentially bring. So again, we're going to keep you updated. There's a chance that we get this news here on the postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Paul Witt will join us from the Transylvania Times. We've talked a lot about this Brevard game so far with Chris Womack. We talked about the Murphy game with him as well, along with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Joseph Watson. So Paul Witt will join us after this quick commercial break, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Blue Devils' victory over Maiden. You're watching the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC.
Raising kids is a roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but most times you wonder how your kid turned out so well. That's how. You did the hard work, made the right decisions, like talking about alcohol before it could be a problem. Go to talkitoutnc.org. Get resources on how to talk about underage drinking. So Mom, Dad, keep up the good work. It's worth it. Talk early. Talk often. Talk it out, NC.
Welcome back to the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. You can visit talkitoutnc.org. Talkitoutnc.org is your spot to get all of the resources that you need to start the conversation today involving stopping underage drinking. We're going to bring in Paul Witt now from the Transylvania Times to talk about this Brevard game and the Blue Devils matchup in the 4A state championship against Reedsville. Before I get you going, Paul, we got a comment here on Facebook. It says, why did Reedsville go east? A little bit about that. Obviously, this year there's not a set east-west line. For if you're still watching, there's not a set east-west line. And so once all of the teams were put into the playoffs, then you divide them down the middle. So because there are a lot of teams in the far west that are in the 4A classification, it means that you need to move that east line a little bit more west to have an even divide. So when you do that, that's how Reedsville ends up in the east. So Reedsville will play Brevard, Paul. As Chris Womack told us earlier in the show, it just felt like the Blue Devils, once they got their footing early, that's all they needed in this one, a 30-13 win over Maiden tonight.
Yeah, it was a pretty dominant win. Probably not as close as the score even shows. A lot of early miscues by the Blue Devils. After Maiden fumbles the snap on the punt, Blue Devils take over about the 30-yard line of Maiden, quickly get it down to 1st and goal from about the 5, come away with no points. Maiden starts driving a little bit. They get to 3rd and short, and Brevard jumps off sides, gives them a 1st down. So just untimely penalties. Even Brevard's do it all wide receiver. Tristan Thompson-Wynn dropped what would have been about a 70-yard touchdown pass that was just a beautiful throw by Conley. And again, as one of the coaches reminded me, Thompson-Wynn runs faster than anybody, so it's easy for us to judge, but you just don't see him put the ball on the ground. So it was just right there, and so Brevard ended up scoring, take the lead 7-0. Maiden answers 7-7. Then Brevard has to punt, and Maiden is driving in the second quarter, and they have a 4th and 2. And their quarterback takes it around the left end, and he picks up 2. He's leaning. He takes 3. Thompson-Wynn comes from his cornerback position, snags the ball, and goes the other way for 61 yards to give Brevard a 14-7 lead. And it really it wasn't over, but it felt like Maiden was playing uphill from there. Thompson-Wynn intercepted the pass to end Maiden's next drive. Brevard got a field goal before half to go up 17-7, and then they come out and march down the field. Braylon Thompson was fantastic. He's their lead running back. I think about 12 carries for 126 yards tonight, 2 touchdowns. He did all the work, most of the work on that drive. And once they were up 24-7, it was time to start thinking ahead.
So thinking ahead, this is the first state championship trip for this program in 43 years. They will face Reedsville, who has been to 3 of the last 4. What are your thoughts going into this matchup? It feels like, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier to Chris Womack, Joel Bryant and I kind of discussed this matchup not too long ago. We feel like the discipline of Brevard is going to play into the Blue Devils' hand, even though this is a Reedsville team that has a ton of talent at the skill positions.
Yeah, I think Brevard probably got a good taste last year in the regional final against Monroe. That was an incredibly athletic team, as you all remember. So I think they know what that's like from that perspective. But Brevard is a disciplined team. That's why tonight was such an anomaly to have drop passes and probably I haven't tallied it up. I would say 55 yards of penalties. That's just not them. They don't do that. They don't put the ball on the ground. They don't penalize themselves and things like that. So I think that will be a potential advantage for them. I got to watch Reedsville for the first time last night in a full game, and they are incredibly athletic. At every position, they will have some athletic advantage in most positions. But Brevard is methodical, and the thing too, Brevard has faced a lot of adversity this year, and they've overcome double overtime. They've won double overtime games. They've won overtime games. They've had to score down 8 with 2 minutes to go, convert the 2-point conversion at Franklin at midnight in a game that was delayed 2 hours by thunderstorms. They've lost a starting quarterback and down by 2 scores on the road and come back and win that game and against West Henderson. So they've shown a lot of adversity. So I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna respect Reedsville, and they deserve all the respect in the world. But I think they'll come out and they're gonna play, and they will be expecting to win whenever they play.
Well, that is Paul Witt from the Transylvania Times joining us here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.
Bringing in Joel Bryant now. He was out at Lincolnton tonight, where Shelby left, no doubt, a 30-0 win over the Wolves. Shelby will go on to the 3A state championship to face Kinston. Have you warmed up at all, Joel?
I'm working on it here in the car. I'm pumping out 80 degrees right now on the little heat thing here. I don't know what it's called. It's just the thing that makes it hot. But yeah, warming up. I forgot some hand warmers tonight, so that was a big mistake. But
goodness.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to HighSchoolOT.com right now, the NCHSAA has released the state championship times and dates. Brandon Marie from the NCHSAA is here. Let's bring him in now into the High School OT post-game show. Can you hear us, Brandon?
Hey, guys.
There we go. There's Brandon.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well.
Good?
Warmer than Joel.
I can't hear you. I don't know if that's just something on my end or...
We can hear you.
I see your lips moving. I'm assuming you can hear me. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Hope things have been going well for you on your live show this evening so far. Just got off a Zoom call with the rest of the NCHSAA staff, and we have finalized the game times for next week, so I'm happy to share those with you guys. Starting on Thursday there you go. Got them on the screen for me. Look at you guys. Great graphics work over here at High School OT. Yep, 1A and 8A are going to be on Thursday at Keenan Stadium, 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And then on Friday, we'll have 6A and 7A. Looking forward to some good regional matchups in the 6A tomorrow. Those winners will play on Friday at Keenan Stadium. And then on Saturday at Lenore Ryan, we'll have the 4A championship first, and then the 2A championship at 5 o'clock. And then we will be at Durham County Stadium for the 3A and the 5A championships. So those Cleveland County fans won't have far to go if they want to catch both games. Really excited about a great week coming up, and hopefully we'll see some great games. I feel like we will. and really grateful to University of North Carolina, their football department, been very helpful in getting us planning underway. Obviously, we've been talking to them for several weeks. Also grateful for City of Durham, County of Durham, for their help as we prepare to play football there. Obviously, we've had lacrosse championships at Durham County in the past, and they've been a great host, as well as Lenore Ryan, a beautiful facility, Moret Stadium, and I think all of our coaches, fans, student athletes are going to be in for a treat at every site that they're at. So appreciate you guys letting me come on. If I could hear you, I'd answer a question or two, but maybe that's a technology thing on my end. But looking forward to seeing everybody at the games next week, and hope you'll have a great rest of your show. All right.
See you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon. That is Brandon Marie from the NCHSAA. So, Joel, we have our times, we have our locations, and it looks like the NCHSAA has followed a formula that it tried to put together back earlier in this fall with volleyball, trying to pair together, obviously, matchups that are equidistant to the two finalists, matchups that can fit the facility, but also matchups that are regionally based. So I bring up the Saturday matchups, Joel. You got Brevard and Murphy in the same building. You go to Durham County, you got Shelby and Crest from the same county in the same building. Luckily, they're playing Kinston and Hunt, 2-2-5-2 teams as well. They're in the same building.
Yeah.
And then you go to Thursday and Friday. Obviously, we kind of knew that 1A, 8A on Thursday just because the teams were on the bye week. But then you look at Friday, you get that Jacksonville, Middle Creek versus Watauga, Northern Guilford. Obviously, Chapel Hill is probably the most central point between all four of those schools, depending on who wins those matchups tomorrow. And then you get that kind of prime time championship Friday night, 8 o'clock heavyweight battle. The Millbrook Huff game I think is going to be phenomenal in 8A. That gets the spotlight on Thursday night. But all year we've talked about how 7A is probably has the most depth of any classification in the state. And on Friday night at 8 o'clock, that's where we are going to get that Clayton-Grimsley matchup. You get the Aiden Smalls, NC State, the Miami commit Keyshawn Stansel. You get all of that going up against Faison Brandon. So the two primetime slots are that Millbrook Huff game on Thursday and then that Clayton-Grimsley game on Friday. What are your initial thoughts, Joel, here as you see where the 8 state championships are going to be?
Yeah, I'm thinking that the 6A people probably aren't happy that they're playing on Friday. Clearly, I think what happened here was with both Shelby and Crest making it to Durham, or both teams making it to the state championship, they decided to kind of pair up those two teams, which is a good idea. That's going to be a pretty fun day at Durham County because you're getting pretty much all of Cleveland County is going to come up to the Durham County Stadium. So that'll be a fun one. But yeah, so the 6A teams are playing tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Both games start at 6 o'clock. And the winners will be playing on Friday night or Friday, I guess, call it afternoon. What do we call 4 o'clock? Is that night or afternoon?
Yeah, sure. And I also think it's a little equitable too now that both teams are playing on Saturday. You wonder how much Middle Creek and Jacksonville moving tomorrow kind of factored into that decision. So now both teams are on a short week, but as I discussed earlier before you joined with J. Mike Blake, UNC might be the only facility that can hold the size of what the crowds may bring, especially from Watauga because they travel so well.
Yeah, that's part of it too. We know that Lenore Ryan's not the biggest stadium out there, so that's probably a key part of it as well. Although I'm curious, so the problem is Keenan is so big, and the other options are so small. We need to start finding options that are in the middle of these because Keenan, no matter how big the crowd we get, it's just never going to fill up the entire lower bowl of Keenan, and then you're going to leave the entire upper bowl empty.
Carter Finley's always been great. Obviously, we know there's construction. There's an NC State-Kansas basketball game on Saturday. There's all sorts of stuff going on at Carter Finley right now. But
I'm talking about how I would prefer to start finding venues that are mid-range, so we can fill it up reasonably to where it looks like that we have a full crowd, but also it needs to be big enough to where we're not, sending people away from going.
Yep.
So I think that there's going to have to be some, brainstorming in the future to find some new venues, especially with how pricey they are.
J. Mike, your thoughts?
There's a few different things here. One, it's if you're a student, because I've been on the sidelines as like a faculty member. There's no doubt like ACC field just feels cool, and when you're playing in the game, you're not thinking like, oh man, it looks kind of empty. That's usually an argument for all the people on TV. So there's a question of like, what's best for the student perspective? The only thing, every time I find like Joel's talking about, like these middle ground stadiums, like Elon's one. And then you ask Mike, well, what's the parking situation at Elon? And they're like, terrible, because Elon almost never packs out their stadium.
And also with it being a private school, not sure how cheap that would be either.
Right. And so it's really tough. I really like, if someone wants to get super, and then you do have, even though UNC and State usually host, the rates are probably good compared for what it is, right? For what you could charge.
And I'll add as well, like Wake Forest, when we've gone there for volleyball and then the basketball championships, that whole complex around their football stadium is now under complete renovation, construction. So there's not a parking situation there. You can't really park right up by the stadium at Duke. You have to park in a deck and then walk quite a way to get to Duke. So,
and those are two more private schools that
it's
probably
a game
charge
of
a little bit more than.
It's a game of whack-a-mole. Like you knock one issue down and another one's going to pop up at a different venue. So,
although I will say, best venue to cover, Duke, Wallace Wade Stadium, not even close.
Elite press box. Sorry, that's something that probably nobody.
That is first. I disagree on the press box. I disagree on the press box because you're sitting at like the 10-yard line and looking this way at the game the whole time.
They do the press conferences at Duke. They bring the players and coaches up behind you, nice. Elevators. So you don't have to go downstairs. Media problems.
That was nice. But I'll give you that. I've looked at. I think like you're saying, the private schools, like public schools want like in-state kids, whether they're on the field or they're just in the student section, to take basically it's like an unofficial visit for those families when they come to those campuses, right? So
I think that was more of a thing before like internet times and social media, Mike.
I
think that definitely used to be a big part of it.
No, I disagree. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the student body.
I know.
Because students still don't necessarily, unless you have an older sibling, you still don't go to a college campus and get a day off of school or whatever it is, or a weekend. You still are not doing that until your junior year or senior year. So having a championship on a public school campus like UNC, there is a little bit of a net benefit that they're interested in. The only other thing that if someone gets super creative, is the independent schools. Obviously, they're only doing it in high schools. They never have a crowd that's going to need what the association is. For instance, like I was kind of surprised Watauga going to UNC, but now I think about it, or if Watauga wins, but now I think about it, I'm like, well, if Watauga makes it, they would have got tickets to 3/4 of Moret Stadium, right? So okay. If independent schools, though, kind of it's going to rotate. And that was the cool thing about football before, was you had like 4A and 2A were always together and they'd always flip every year, except in those random years we would have Duke and Wake Forest involved. I wonder if like it would make more sense to, again, maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's not, almost like East Carolina, App State, or Charlotte, and then you just flip every year so people know where you're going well ahead of time, and then you're not necessarily. I mean, that's kind of a wild idea, but I think it's mid-sized enough. But then again, like it's still going to look pretty empty. I don't know if there's a right size venue for this, right? 30,000 looks really empty when no one's there, and ECU's bigger than that. And I know people are like, state championships on Thursday is crazy. Yeah, but that's kind of the 8-class life that we live in all sports now. The only way to go back would be to, I don't know, Joel can speak more to this, like options that we would have that would not involve a Thursday night, but it's kind of seems like to me, especially with the short brackets in 1A and 8A and the fact that they are going on Thursday, at least, other states play midday. They'll play championships on Wednesday at noon. Right. So we're kind of different in that we've never had this before, but it's not ridiculous. So
Joel,
Yeah.
while I have you here,
There's a couple other options stadium wise. I mean, you got UNC Charlotte Memorial Stadium in Charlotte as well. Those are two kind of ones that I think would be probably about the right size, I would think, for what we're looking for.
We just got a comment on Facebook here. Ready for a state championship tourney between all the state champions. Let's get through these 8 classifications
Right.
before we go to that. Joel, a lot of comments that we are seeing coming in on Facebook, Joel, involve some of these matchups.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start just asking you about the Shelby matchup tonight. What you saw out of them against Lincolnton. I think the intriguing thing here is that both double-digit seeds in the 3A that were left in the 3A regional final got blowout wins. Kinston 30-7, Shelby 30-0. We have a lot of Kinston and Shelby fans right now in the comments going back and forth about this one. So what's your take on it while we have them?
Well, Shelby was never out of control in this game. They got the first kickoff, and then they went right down the field and scored. They had this freshman running back, Jonas Woods, I think is his name.
Yep.
His first name is definitely Jonas. I remember because we have Jonas that works with us. But he's a good little player. He's probably about 5'9", and he's got a good nose for space. And he had 2 touchdowns tonight. And Land Farmer was excellent. Land Farmer is Shelby's all-time leading passer in Cleveland County. But
which is so impressive.
Yeah, but has never been to a state championship before. And as we know, Shelby does that kind of regularly. So I think this is a nice moment for him to break through, finally get a regional championship and go to a state final for him. Something that he hasn't done in his career. And you can tell it's kind of a nice little weight off his shoulders there. But fun fact, so Shelby and Crest both in the state championship. First time that's happened since 2015. And then when that happened in 2015, Shelby played Kinston in the state championship, and they beat Lincolnton to go to the state championship. So this was Coach Wilbanks that pointed this out after the game. So kind of a full circle moment here 10 years later. Exactly.
Very interesting. Joel, as we kind of wrap up, get into the back half of this show, I just want to quickly go through the matchups that we have now that we know 7 of the 8 state championship matchups, and just quickly kind of get your thoughts on what to expect. I'm going to pull up the 8A bracket again. Huff Millbrook. We've talked a lot about this one. I think there's going to be the potential that there are 3 or 4 future NFL players on the field in this matchup. But what are your thoughts on this 8A matchup that we now know is going to be Thursday in primetime?
Yeah, the defenses, it has to be the defenses. Like I said last week, I think it's arguably the state's best cornerback, the state's best defensive end, and the state's best linebacker on the field in this game. I'm talking about Smart Matthews, the Huff corner, Quinn Cypher, the Millbrook linebacker, Rashad Streets, the Millbrook defensive end. In terms of defensive talent, there's not much better than you'll see in that 8A game.
All right, let's move on to 7A. We now know that is going to be on Friday night at Keenan Stadium in prime time at 8 o'clock. It's going to be Grimsley and Clayton. Again, tons of firepower, tons of star power. If you want to watch a lot of guys who are going to play big Power 4 football at the next level, this is another game at Keenan for you.
Site tells me this one's not going to be the kind of defensive battle that we saw with Grimsley and Weddington last night. Clayton's got a little bit more on offense. And I'll tell you this, Grimsley's a favorite in this game. I'll tell you this, based on initial research today, it seems like most of the touchdowns that Grimsley's given up this year has been to dual threat quarterbacks on the ground. Not sure what to make of that yet, but as we know, Aiden Smalls is a very prolific dual threat quarterback, and it'll be interesting.
All right, now we're going to skip over 6A. We'll know about that tomorrow. But 5A, let's take a quick look here. You mentioned a little bit about Crest, but they'll be facing Hunt. Crest is a team, Joel, that you were really high on all year long as this favorite to come out of the 5A West. And then you got Hunt, a team that'll be playing for its first state title in 21 years.
Yeah, I think the thing here, it's just the level of schedule difficulty difference. I think Hunt has played some good teams, Tarboro and Northern Nash, but what Crest has dealt with all year is a little bit different. Crest even played Weddington, which was a 7A West runner-up. So I think that'll be an interesting component of that matchup. But, Hunt, they're pretty stout in that front 7 on their defense. And I think the way you theoretically could beat Crest is to just kind of harass Eli Hamrick all night. So if they can get pressure on them consistently, then it can be a kind of leveling factor.
So that'll be your 5A final. Let's go. We talked a little bit about 3A. Let's talk about 4A here. Brevard Reedsville. I think this one's going to be a really good game. I think this one could be a really exciting one. This is going to be Saturday morning in Hickory at Moret Stadium on the campus of Lenoir Rhine, Joel.
Well, I think I told you this on the phone last night, but if Reedsville has the same kind of sloppiness in that game that they had last night, I'm talking about like quarterbacks running 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, stuff like that, Brevard will beat them. So Coach Teague and Reedsville, they need to kind of take a lot of that stuff out. A lot of those kind of those plays that can just really kind of compound in a bad way. If they can take those out, I think that they'll be fine. Just talent-wise, they probably have the advantage. They just need to play more consistently than they did against West Craven to win that game against Brevard.
So we've talked about the 3A final. That is going to be Shelby-Kinston. Let's now talk about the 2A final. This is a really fun one. It's going to be Murphy and Tarboro. A little taste of the old 8 subdivided days resurrected here in the new 8 classification realignment. The Bulldogs and the Vikings, Joel.
Yeah, Murphy's really good, but we've been talking about this kind of privately. We think this might be the best Tarboro team that's ever been. And for those that
is saying something.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Like for those that are any bit aware of Tarboro, that is a big statement. This class, this 2026 class, they have Tyler Powell, Cam McDowell, Moore, Caden Everett, all these guys. They've been as successful as any class has been at Tarboro, and it's just a machine. There's no weakness on that team. I think it would, in theory, it would take a team that's really good at spreading the ball out to give them problems. I think Kinston gave them problems when they played Kinston in the regular season finale, but Murphy is not that team. Murphy's not going to do that to you through the air. So it'll be a good one. I mean, Murphy's really talented. It's just Tarboro, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this where the 2A team beat the 5A East winner and the 3A East winner in the regular season. I'd be curious to find out if that's ever happened. Alex Bass probably be able to tell us that.
So that is your 2A matchup. It's Murphy and it's Tarboro. And then your 1A matchup is, going to be Robbinsville and Wilson Prep. I noted this, Joel, earlier in the show. Now that we're in 8 classifications, it opens up for so many of these, like, if you want to call them blue blood programs, your Robbinsvilles, your Murphys, Tarboro, Shelby, Reedsville. You just go down the line, look at some of these classic programs are all playing for state titles. And it's a nice mix because you have those programs, the Grimsleys and whatnot, but then you also have the kind of new blood that has been knocking on the door for so many years. Brevard's first trip in 43 years, Hunt's first trip in 21 years, Clayton's first trip since 1989, Millbrook and Huff making their first trip ever, Wilson Prep making its first trip ever. But this one is going to be the Tigers and the Black Knights. What do you expect from this one?
Yeah, notable that most of those teams that are breaking these droughts are from the East. Kind of an interesting storyline there. Of course, Wilson Prep is a new program. Within 5 years, they've done this. Very impressive. And I feel like we've always had one of these games during the 8 championships where it's just like this behemoth of a state power facing a team that's never been there before. It seems like a regular occurrence. I think in terms of, just knowing how to win these games and the pedigree and just kind of the system of everything that Robbinsville does, that's an inherent advantage. But I think if anybody's looking at this just kind of, objectively, I think Wilson Prep has more talent on that roster. So it's going to be an interesting kind of yin and yang there. Is the talent maybe going to win out for Wilson Prep, or is just the consistency of Robbinsville going to lead them to another title?
So those are your matchups so far. Again, tomorrow we will know what the full spectrum of all the matchups will be as Watauga takes on Northern Guilford in the 6A West final. Middle Creek heads out to play Jacksonville in the 6A East. That will do it for this week's edition of the High School OT post-game show presented by Talk It Out NC. We're not done. We will be back next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We will bring you post-game shows presented by Talk It Out NC all 3 days. First 2 from Keenan Stadium, and then we'll be split up on Saturday between Hickory and Durham, bringing you post-game shows there. So we'll just break down the matchups that were played that day. Also, you can join us before every day we will have the High School OT pregame show. That is presented by our partners at Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. We will preview all of the matchups going into each day. So that will first debut on Thursday live from Keenan Stadium on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill. Anything else to add before we go?
Yeah,
Joel?
we'll have full coverage of the state championship press conference on Monday. That'll be at the Grandover Hotel in Greensboro. I'm told that the food is good there, so looking forward to that. So we'll have kind of a video of basically Hugh Tucker's kind of words to the coaches and all the logistics stuff we get in that kind of initial like press conference deal. Then we'll talk to all the coaches afterwards, which will be fun because we have 16 to do between.
It's hard to grab 8 most years, but now 16. So if anybody's at the Grandover and you see 2 guys running around with cameras scrambling, it's the 2 of us.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. And then I'm gonna have various preview content out throughout the week to get people ready for the games starting on Thursday.
Well, that is Joel Bryant. I'm Evan Moesta here from the High School OT studios in Raleigh. We thank you for joining us, and we'd like to congratulate the 14 teams that have already advanced to play in next week's state championships. You can head on over to highschoolot.com right now, see what the state championship matchups and schedules will be. Before we go, one last message from our partners at Talk It Out NC.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth: teens bounce back fast and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.